But before we go on, those of you who require a one-on-one following this webinar, please leave your name, your email, and contact number on the chat box so that we will come back to you. We have planned a one-on-one session from 3 p.m. onwards, and if somebody is interested, we would be happy to connect with Dr. Ranajit from IKP. So leave your contacts. This is just upfront. Any queries, anything during the session, please drop your queries on the chat box as well. Thanks all of you for joining and welcome again.
So thank you so much, Dr. Sada and VIT for organizing this session. I am audible, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes. Great. And thank you, Dr. Sridhar and Anmol joining us today. Even Dr. Vishu is here. VIT has been a really, has been given us gems from last few years through BIG. We are really thankful for that. Hoping to get more from VIT. I would like to jump to the today's session's agenda. All of you know about IKP Knowledge Park. If not, just a brief about IKP. It's a not-for-profit private sector science park and incubator located at Hyderabad with various arms in Bangalore and Mangalore and other places in Karnataka region. Through IKP, 1230 plus innovators have been supported across India, and through BIG, we have 165 BIG awardees till now who got BIG awards. So BIG, which stands for Biotechnology Ignition Grant, is an idea to POC grant up to 50 lakh rupees for 18 months duration. The areas supported under BIG are medical device, drug and drug delivery, agriculture, diagnostics, secondary agriculture, waste management, and industrial biotechnology. Any digital AI ML based solution overlapping all these areas will also be eligible for the grant. The admin eligibility for this is any graduate who's willing to apply will be eligible. Startup less than 5 years old company would be eligible for the same. The selection process involves the application acceptance biannually in January and July. Which will be followed by the eligibility check through online review, followed by face-to-face presentation, and then the cutoff scores have been decided, and the top 50, 60, or 70, however is chosen by BIREC, will be selected for the grant. And the basic evaluation criteria for BIG are these 5 points on which the scorings are being done. Other than that, many other criteria which is written and below these slide are also required, but the scorings are done based on the unmet need, value proposition, technical viability of the project, team strength, and business perspective. Apart from that, commercialization potential of the project, IP, and regulatory clarity of the project will also be given importance for the BIG proposals. If we talk about, so BIG being a really competitive grant and really comprehensive, it involves 10 components in the application form, and each one of the component should be given equal importance, because reviewer will see all these 10 components very carefully and judge based on the same. First component, I'll go one by one, all these components in next slides. First one will be title. Please don't keep it too long and a paragraph form. Just has to be very, so unlike other research grants where you have to be very precise in the title as well, in the grant you can put one-liner, 6 to 7 sentences in one line would be easy to refer to and easy to remember also. Introduction, which should include problem statement, the current market for that problem, who are addressing it, and the solution what you are providing and how you are addressing it. So problem statement is a really important aspect when you actually clear from your side what problem you are solving. Is it really worth to solve? Is it really causing really worth to solve problem? Just define the problem in the introduction, be it medical condition, be it drug supply chain issues. I've given just example of healthcare and agriculture sector. What are the main issues and solution around that can be built? Problem when you are mentioning why it is important, the market for it, which you can divide into, say, total available market, total serviceable market, which you particularly addressing through your solution. And then the solution, how you are solving that particular issue, how the current market is solving it, and what differentiation you are bringing to solve it, and in what manner. So process and product both are need to be defined in the introduction precisely. Next one is value proposition. And why I put all these in one slide, because these are the business jargons you would be hearing whenever you write for grant, for funding, or any entrepreneurship challenges. Value proposition, how you position your product in the market. Same thing, how your product exactly going to address the issue, who will be the customer who will buy it, and what are the differentiation factor, the USP, which we call as. What is the differentiation factor you are adding in the process or the product or the technology you are proposing. And the important aspect is competitive landscape. It is suggested that you do a thorough research. When you do a market research, you would understand multiple products actually exist in the market already who deal with the same problem, but how they deal, what drawbacks they have, what USP they have, that can be charted out in a comparative landscape study. So here, if you see the slide, which shows the competitive landscape chart, it's just a brief basic chart, which shows the features and the product which are existing, the features they have, and your product. If you do that landscape by yourself, if apart from the BIG grant, it will be helpful for any other funding if you do that kind of landscaping for your product. And just to know it, if you specify what is the differentiation, if it is, say, affordable, turnaround time is less, or even it is solving an unmet need, that could be your USP, which you have to highlight in the proposal. Then comes the team. Really not mandatory to have a team in the beginning, but important to highlight that you are planning to hire. BIG being a commercialization pipeline grant, you need to show that there is a strong team which should be having a competitive, scientific, technically competent person, as well as person who has experience in probably a business side of the entrepreneurship journey. And if you're mentioning scientific advisor and business experts, it would be advisable to have the written consent from them that they would like to be a part of your team. That would not cause any conflict in future. Next, I would go to objectives and milestones. Really, when you describe a grant, don't just chart out and provide a flow chart. You need to give a really thorough detail how you're going to do it, especially mentioning quantity of particular, say for example, a protein you are isolating, quantity of the protein, the process you are applying, is it efficient, how efficiency will be increasing, sensitivity will be increasing. These numbers are really important if you're mentioning the process flow. Any prelim data or background, if you have any publication, please mention them in the proposal. Use that as a reference to back your current proposal. Really good to know the publication already done. Facts are available, facts and figures are available already there for your project. Just back scientific acumen of the proposal. Contingency plan. Really important to know what you are going to write. You have another backup plan for if, say, for example, one objective doesn't, one process doesn't get fulfilled during the course of 18 months, what another contingency plan you can go about. A vector will not work. What other vector you can choose to go ahead with? If you mention those details in the proposal, at least it will have an added advantage for you in order to get judged by the reviewer. A budget, many people will just write 15 lakh for equipment, 15 for consumer. That won't do. Need to give a detailed amount of planning and what kind of equipments you need, what will be the consumable broadly you would be using throughout 18 months. That need to be charted out in detail. And the justification. So here, if you can see, I've given one example of one budget and objective table. What you are going to do, units, how much you need, what equipments or consumable you need, units like quantity you need, the cost could be you can ask for the vendors for quotations and just put a roundabout figure in the cost. Justification, why would you need it for the course of 18 months? IP strategy, really important aspect. BIG being a novelty-driven innovation grant, IP will be important to have. And if not at the beginning, try to see if during the course or in the future, are you planning to file something, either the trademark, copyright. If you you're planning, then mention that in the IP section. Please don't write not applicable. It doesn't give a nice impression to the reviewer. For IP, we have IKP Prime, a different arm of the IKP who deals with the technology transfer and IP filing. So we have many grantees who came with literally an idea to us, and then Prime pitch in and help them making those idea to make some claims and then define their IP, even later on filing for the provisional as well. If you need any help, we can post in the chat box the Prime link, or even BIG team would help in connecting to Prime team. We have Dr. Hema, Bandra, Manish and Harshada and Vithal from IKP Prime. If you would like to connect, we'll be happy to connect to them with them. The proposal, just few concerns which should not be why are the reasons why proposals do not get through. Mostly they are poorly written. People do not discuss with their team members, and at the time of presentation, only one person has idea, but others do not know exactly what they are doing. Insufficient technical detail. Please provide as much as possible. Keeping the showing the non-confidentiality information would be fine for BIG. Then lack of credible PI and team. Whoever is the PI has to be scientifically and technically competent person. Plus important, and if they are applying as a startup, PI has to be the shareholder in this case. Minimal percentage would also do, but yes, they should be there. Too much background awareness, what you are planning to do and what research publication or background data you have should be highlighted, and what you are currently planning to do should also be given equal relevance and importance. So we have just a few examples. I've picked up Dozy, might have heard that they were one of the BIG grantee and have been to scale up drastically in last 2-3 years. So it's a sleep monitoring device come into ICU monitoring device. Yes, so I would like to finish it here. Thank you for your time. Dr. Sudha, over to you. Maybe we can have now Anmol to share her experience.
Welcome, Anmol.
Yes, hi, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'll just share my screen as well.
Yes, please.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, please go.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Anmol Saxena, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ashwa. At Ashwa, we believe that India really needs affordable and accessible rehab technologies, and we are enabling that through wearable sensors and AI. So some of our product, so the way I'm going to talk to you today is basically I'll be talking to you a bit about my company, a bit about the product. And then I'll tell you how our journey has been up until the big BIRAC BIG grant and even further up until now, and how IKP has been a very instrumental part as BIG partners and even in follow-up investment rounds. So about our company, Ashwa has 3 products in the portfolio. The first flagship product being Fitnees, the other products being Fitmust and Mudra. So Fitnees is a 4 motion sensor wearable system that you strap on the knee. It helps patients monitor the progress in physiotherapy, patients suffering from osteoarthritis, knee replacement surgeries, and basically it gives detailed data analytic report. So the way I compare it, it's like a glucometer for a diabetic patient, talking to the patient about their progress. Fitmust is a handheld dynamometer for muscle strength testing. Basically, if you want to quantify muscle strength of your upper or lower peripherals, Fitmust would be the device you could use today in clinics. And Mudra, finally, is a spinal wearable sensor. So every time you slouch, it vibrates and gives you an alert to sit straight. Through our journey, we basically started the company with VIT TBI. We were incubated, and the fact that VIT TBI enabled this entire ecosystem of an office space, mentors, interns, and also gave us the first Nidhi Prayas grant. That allowed me to move from my corporate job with Ford Motors company in Chennai and actually really start my own business. So in the first 6 to 7 months, we were able to get the Nidhi Prayas grant of 10 lakhs from VIT TBI, with which we built our first prototype. With the help of this prototype, we were able to capture some amount of data and then submit that and kind of get the next follow-on grant from VIT again, which is the BIRAC Seed Fund. Through the BIRAC Seed Fund, we developed some, further refined our prototype and made an MVP, started collecting the very first initial 7-8 patient data with one physiotherapist. And that data kind of helped us to apply and give a strong proposition to the BIG community, BIG committee. So with the big grant, the big grant came right at the junction of COVID-19. So we got the big grant approved and the first release of that grant in between March to July 2020. And with the help of the BIG grant, we were able to complete our software platform, the UI UX of our software. And within a few months, when the markets opened up again, we were able to take our product into full-fledged clinical trials, which were CDSU registered as well as IRC approved, ethics committee approved. And now we have over around last year, May 2021, we launched our first product, Fitmust. And we have over 25, 27 physiotherapists who are using our products in roughly 3 cities. So that was a very quick glimpse of where we are. We actually, like I mentioned, we raised the Nidhi Prayas grant followed on by the BIRAC Seed Fund. That was followed up by the big grant, 50 lakh. And now we have just recently closed a seed funding with the lead investment coming from Zoho. Some majority investment coming from IKP, and then also some other co-investors. So to be frank, we actually applied for BIG and got the grant in the 3rd attempt. We failed for the first 2 attempts. And the reason why we failed for the first 2 attempts are something that I would like to share with you, because I think that is going to be very, very valuable in your application process as well. The very first time we applied for the BIG grant, at that point of time, we were at very nascent ideation stage and we had no clarity on the technology itself. So we went to the BIG committee and proposed a smart brace that has 3 sensors and has machine learning and this very big, huge, fancy thing, which probably wasn't practical. And later we realized it really wasn't practical. So obviously the committee gave us this feedback and we had to close that particular, we were removed from that particular application process. So the second time we applied, we had a very strong clarity on the technology as well as some amount of data, but our business plan was very incoherent. So we decided that we are going to provide progress monitoring for two category of customers. The first category being chronic knee pain patients and the second being athletes. And at that point of time, the committee, which comprised the CEO of a huge medical device company, a lot of scientific researchers, people from the industry, who have developed pharmaceutical devices, pharmaceutical solutions, who have developed surgical beds, so on and so forth. Those were the people who actually comprised our panel. And this panel of members told us that, you know what, you cannot sit and focus on two different customer segments. You need to have a clarity in what customer you're going after and build everything towards that customer. And the entire technology, as well as the feature set, as well as your business plan, needs to be fine-tuned. And again, we were rejected from the process. So that brought us to a certain degree of clarity that this we really need to focus on. And what they actually told us way back then in those committees is something that now we are able to understand why they said those. When we have launched a product, when we are finding the first 100, 200 customers, we understand where they came from. So that kind of experience, that kind of value, even though we failed 2 times in the BIG grant, was extremely vital. And that's why my suggestion, or my 2 rupees worth to you, would be that first, go with a very strong, either go with a working prototype or go with a very strong proof of concept. Second, go with a very clear customer segment. So if you have these 2 things nailed down, you basically have a good idea of what you'll be doing for the next 18 months as part of your company. The third thing is, if you take your working prototype, you take your customer segment, and you do some amount of market research upfront, you have some amount of data on both the product side, that my product works, it's accurate, it's going to be valid, these are the few things that I have to rectify. And if you go to them saying that, these are the kind of customers I'm going after, this is their, let's say, monthly revenues, or this is the kind of revenue bracket or economic bracket they come in, so I can actually position my product in that segment quite well. That initial data finding or feedback for a very super competitive grant like the BIG grant is going to be very vital for you. The fourth thing that I honestly felt BIRAC really values is the kind of innovativeness, the kind of invention that you're doing. So you need to be unique, inventive, novel, but that's not true for everybody. That is something that's important for them, but you may not have to be absolutely patentable to actually have a product or actually have a strong proposal, but that is a criteria for them. And for us, that is one thing that worked. And the other thing that you should also definitely be going with is a well-researched business plan. So see, business plan is going to keep getting refined, keep getting a little modified, upgraded as you move ahead in your product development and your business development journey. But at least have some amount of logical conclusions of what you are doing or what kind of business you're going to at least start with. So you have a product, that this is my this is the amount of market, some 10 billion, $20 billion worth of market is what I'm going through. This means I'll be reaching to, let's say 15 million people. That's the kind of impact in terms of revenue and number of people I can do within our country. These are some of the competitors in my space. This is how I'm differentiating myself, and at least give a glimpse or give a logical understanding of how you're going to launch the product, at what pricing point, and through what business model. So that will help you further bolster your proposal that you are here to make a business and this is not a research project for BIG. Okay. And finally, you all will be likely making some of the other either you'll be in microbiology creating some kind of formulas, or you'll be likely in biomedical space, whatever be the case, please have a fair bit of understanding of what your regulatory pathway looks like, when you should be taking your product or your service into into regulation. And IKP has also helped in guiding and keep giving us these workshops that allows us to first of all understand what the hell does even ISO mean, what is IAC, what is relevant to my product. And then the second thing is at what stage of my product development journey do I have to incorporate these kind of things. So every investor or every partner that you are going to collaborate with hereafter, they have some end game, right? So for BIRAC, for BIG specifically, the end game is the success of a big grantee beyond all the money that you probably have to repay. For them, what again, my understanding is they want innovation and impact in the country, and they're eager to actually back really good startups who are going to do something that's going to create value or that's going to create impact in our country. And that's what they have created this big grant for. If you are able to show and put yourself in all the checklists for whatever they have mentioned above, I think that helps you get the grant. Now a little bit of maybe being preachy about why IKP became very good with big partners. So for the first 2 rounds, I had chosen some other big partners. In the third round only did I actually, like the third time applied only, did I actually get a chance to get IKP as my BIG partners. Now, what happened is, like I mentioned, we got the BIG grant approved right at the cusp of COVID-19. But every time I went to them, asked them for grant, they gave me, if I told them a month or 2 weeks before that I need the grant in this duration, and my conversation I used to basically harass Vishu on this a lot over the last 1.5 years. There was absolutely no bullshit. Within 2 to 4 weeks, the grant was given to me. So I had no, lack in my speed of completing the R&D on doing the trials, on getting these things done, even during COVID, because funding was not an issue for me at all. With the grants coming in as I requested. I mean, literally, Vishu would break my tranche into 2 halves and disperse it, but give it to me on time so that I can at least complete my work for the next 2-3 months. So that is how strong and how supportive the ecosystem was. The second thing is the mentors that they get you are people who have actually been there, done that. So, you are at this stage, you will find senior startups who are maybe 2 years, 3 years ahead of you. They can empathize with you. They can understand what shit you're going through, and they can actually help you kind of resolve those matters very fast. And that's the ecosystem, the strength that they bring. And then you have these people who are 25, 30 years advance from you, and you get a chance to directly talk to them, create a rapport with them, and get their guidance literally on WhatsApp and phone call, and things start moving much faster from them. Okay. The next very strong thing that I honestly have experienced is follow-up investments, because IKP is a part of they're in the midst of this at the heart of BIRAC ecosystem. So I got the LEAP fund in this, just the round that I've just closed. IKP themselves have invested their own money from the incubation center into the company, and they got me a very, very, very strong strategic partnership, which I'm yet to see how that pans out. But I believe if I can crack that partnership, my company is going to be on like this blitzkrieg growth pathway. So that's the kind of follow on, even after BIG, that's the kind of support I've started getting. And I know people who've remained in the ecosystem for the last 10, 20 years, and they are still, being partners, they are still contributing to those companies as well. So there is a genuine and honest level of value addition. These guys are not here for, making quick money and exiting. They are not your financial partners. They are there for the long run with you. And to be honest, the kind of parties that they throw, I think the most recent was when Sridhar came on as our CEO of IKP Eden. IKP throws amazing parties, and I think that's a big plus point. So I'll stop there. If you have any kind of queries, any kind of questions, please do reach out to me. I'm just giving you my number and a way to connect with me. I'll be happy to pick up a call, help you in any small way that I can. Thank you very much. I think that's all.
Thank you, Anmol. If anybody has a quick question, we could take 1 or 2 with Anmol right away. there aren't any queries, then probably we will move on and hold the queries to the end of the session. Would request Dr. Sridhar to please take over from here.
Sure. So Anmol is a very tough act to follow, full of enthusiasm, life, and I think it's very happy to see the way that she has grown over the last few years. I've been on and off sitting on the other side. So just to give you a little bit of what my role is I've been part of the process, as a reviewer for the big grants, looking at other grants as well. As all of you know, the big grant is really to take your concept into a POC. The whole idea to POC, that journey that you have to do. And an important factor that I would consider, and if you're running a startup, or if you're so passionate about an idea and you want to realize that, right? Sometimes what happens is we get very excited and we focus on what we know and we say, blah, blah, this is what it is, this is what it is. But when that is there, and one of the most important aspects that I have learned when we, as part of this whole grant writing process, I've also written a grant that was given to us to the predecessor to the BIG. It used to be called the Nimitli grant, right? So what I have learned in this whole process is that it is very important to be a little bit ahead. So for example, if August 15th or 16th is the last day, we should not, this is not an exam, right? This is something that we need to consider very, very clearly. And we need to figure out how you have at least 1 week, if not more, to review your idea as a third person. For me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, the best critique is actually you. So a good process really, as you are preparing to submit this grant, is for you to write something and leave it aside, come back to it so that you can critique your own inputs as you think of getting towards a product. I am saying this from a reviewer's perspective because a reviewer is typically a person who has been around the sun reasonable amount of time, and who has an idea, who has whether academic, industrial, who has experiences looking at what ideas seem to work. A lot of you know that it is not only about the idea. I have the greatest ideas in the world, let us say that, but if I'm not able to communicate it, if I'm not able to express it, then that idea is a waste. And the idea here in this particular grant that we are talking about is, how do you have a kernel of an idea and measure this is going to be, let's take Anmol's idea, right? And I thought she was extremely honest in sharing with this whole philosophy of try until you succeed. So she had an idea. She said, I want to pursue this idea. I think it's going to be a game changer. And she said, the first thing she said, oh, I'll put everything I know into this whole thing and they're just going to be blown away. But that's not what, when you review, you look at a clarity of thought. Okay, I have this particular thought. I believe this is going to change the way things will work. Now, from there, how do we get it to a point? Remember, the whole journey of the big is, how do we get this from point A to point B? Point A is the ideas in your mind. You've done some little experiments maybe, or you've observed it, etc. From there, you want to get it to a proof of concept, which means something that works reasonably. Anybody who has done products knows that there is never 100%, there's never a perfect product. It's impossible, because every product itself is iteration. And all you are doing in this whole journey is to mitigate risks that are associated with the product. It is all about risk management. It's all about risk mitigation. So when you come up with an idea, one of the best things that I would advise you to look at is, okay, this is our idea. We think this is going to change the world. or at least a local thing where there's an opportunity. So you look around and let us say, diabetes is a very popular topic. We should not necessarily go and waste time talking about how diabetes is epidemic, India is the diabetes capital, blah, blah, blah. Your reviewers know this. So use your words, the choice of words, how you express that wisely as you go ahead and bring that story out there. Because, I mean, as was pointed out by Apurva, you really have 20% of your marks for the unmet need. The faster you get to that unmet need, the better it is for you, right? Because you can't go on and on about the unmet need without actually talking what the unmet need is. The next 20 is really on the value proposition, right? The value proposition being that this is the need, then I have this idea which I think is going to address that need. Now, here you have to be practical. If you are impractical, and I think that was a wonderful example given, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll put AI, we'll do, then people will see through, because they what they hear on the other end. Remember, somebody reviewing this is not doing a PhD thesis. They have a limited amount of time. So when you're reviewing it, when I'm reviewing it, I will allocate, let us say 5 minutes, 10 minutes to look at it. You will have to reach out and capture that attention. So sometimes, using pictures, you telling that story that will get you your audience attention. That is very, very important. So if you are talking movie terms, right, it is not necessarily the story. It is also the screenplay that is very important. So you need to have a story. You need to have a screenplay. I mean, as an aside, right, Kamal Hassan in an interview, all of you know this fable of, there is especially in the Tamil Nadu area, there's a often told story, right? There is a crow, there's an old lady making a vada, and the crow goes and gets the vada, and then there's a jackal, which basically sees, this is a wolf, or whatever the story is, it makes the crow sing, the crow drops the vada, and then of course there are deviations around it. In a very interesting interview, Kamal Hassan talked about how, this is a story, but the screenplay can be from the version of the crow, from the version of the lady, from the version of the vada, or from the version of the fox, right? So likewise, whatever your audience is, in this case, there are a bunch of reviewers that you're talking, you have to tell that story in a very clear format. That's really the value proposition. Now, if you look at the next aspect of it, which has got the highest possible thing, which is the technical viability, right? The technical viability is, again, there they're giving you 30% of the marks. So you have the problem, you think you have a solution, you've described it. Now, how do you think, what is the path that you're going to take from the idea to something that's tangible, that's going to be perceived, right? So, if we were planning a trek, right? What you are talking about is, let us say, I've never done a trek to Mount Everest, but I'm just using that as a figurative example, is that you start from ground level, you reach a particular milestone. Let us say there are people who are not well as part of your group. Those are all risks that is there. As you go to that level, you say, okay, this level of risk, these people have been able to manage it, which means they can go to the next level. So it is, as you can imagine, you plot this journey from ground level, which is in your mind, to the idea, what are those milestones and why they seem achievable, right? One of the best lessons I have learned is, if you are looking into the unknown is basically a known plus delta, right? So you must connect with your audience with saying, hey, this is all known, but this is a logical next step based on theory or based on application in some other area we think is representing low risk. So you should plot the journey in the technical viability section from going from your idea to the POC, how you're going to make that jump. I think if you get your audience there, then in movie terms, paisa vasool, you will be able to get your return, you'll be able to get there. But that is going to take time, and that's going to take clarity. And then you need to go through this. Of course, in this process, you need to talk about your IP, regulatory, all of those things as you go forward. And end of the day, remember, this is to run business. So as you go, you can say one person, I'm building a team. I'm also looking at business as an opportunity that is there. The big group of proposals is not blue sky research. It is about making that into a product. So I think that's very important for you to consider as you go forward. So I would say overall, in this whole process, communicate, because this is it's all selected in terms of who's doing it. So we really don't know who's your reviewer, but through pictures or other ways, make sure you communicate and make sure, and this is a very important point, you are able to accept critiquing. And sometimes critiquing, as you know, is different from being a critic, being criticizing, right? Critiquing is unemotional. It is something that I would say, hey, these things that is there. But be also, you should be ready to hear some criticism. One of the things that I learned, and I've done my mistakes too, right? Never get into a fight with the review. There is absolutely no point of getting into a fight with the review. If you're doing presenting, let's say you go through the stage, you go to a presentation, you cannot take anything that is said in that room on a personal basis, because there are professionals, and even though they seem unprofessional, they may seem unprofessional to you. There are professionals there. I have done my mistakes in some of these grants for sure. When I was pitching for a company where I said, where a person was asking an obviously incorrect question, I should have been polite in answering that, but I chose the path of what's wrong with you people? Clearly not a winning proposition, right? So it is very important, because you are entering a community where you will be seeing people again and again. So it is very important not to burn any bridges, be humble, but at the same time, if you have data, if you have things that is confident, be confident. That does not mean you have to succumb and say whatever you say is right. I don't know anything. Absolutely not. You are the genius in the room. You are taking the idea. You want to take it forward. And if you follow this process of risk mitigation and taking it forward and saying that, I think it is reasonably possible to get there. And if we get there, the world will open for us, because we're going to create IP, we're going to create things that have not existed before. And that's really the joy of a creator, right? Creating things that have not existed in that format before. I think that's really what you are aiming to do in this whole process. So to reiterate, essentially the points: what's the unmet need? Be very clear there. What's your value proposition? You need to be clear how we are going to meet that journey. What is the commercial potential? What will the country get? What is the regulatory challenges that you may face, etc. And I think a big point that I learned from Anmol's talk, which maybe you should also do not think of a huge bite. Give the problem in bite-sized pieces that will allow them to get to believe that you are able to solve this problem. Again, that is with respect to the proposal. The next stage is when you do a presentation, etc. I'm sure our teams will, we will work with you in this process as to how you can do. We will help you review that, all of those things. But when you are there, be humble but confident. Do not burn any bridges in these process, because sometimes it just doesn't work and it's not your fault. But having said that, we should also be open, keep our ears open and hear feedback coming in from people. And that's one of the things that people say, do not believe your own BS. That's very important. So when people are giving their, you have to be honest and understand what they are saying, and figure out how you can make a better shot at it the next time. That's it from my side, from how I would look at it from a reviewer's perspective. Happy to take any questions, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sridhar.
Sure.
Any questions for Dr. Sridhar? So you have a big grantee here. You have a reviewer here. I think you should make the best use of it.
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm Arpana Kamath. I work as a senior scientist at NeoDX Biotech Lab. So I just have a question whether even to apply for a big grant, what would be the criteria for startups? How many year old startup it should be? Because there was one criteria in the website when I was going through the BIRAC guidelines. It is mentioned that there is some kind of a time restriction for a startup, like how old a startup should be.
Apurva, you want to take that or Visu?
Yes. So the startup should not be more than 5 years old. That's the only criteria.
Okay. Any restrictions on the investors? Like, if we have an investor who is running another company, who has a who is having a more hold on other company, and it is also in relation to any biotech industry, something that criteria was also on the website.
Yes. So any promoter or partner should not be having more than 20% share in another ineligible company. And ineligible means if they're working in the biotech domain.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Any other question?
Ma'am, if not, and if they want to do one-on-one or even write on email, that is also fine.
Yeah.
If they have questions later on, that is.
Apurva, can you leave your email on the chat so that if they can write to you as well? If they write to me, I will forward.
But we will request all the people to CC Sudha ma'am so that she is also aware. Last time I just want to present one case of Professor Pundlik. So what happened? So after the IKP team has gone through the presentation, there were a few gaps, and we told Bala sir and Sudha ma'am, and they were able to connect with the department where they were able to get the additional things before the interview. So it is better Sudha ma'am or Bala sir is CC'd in all the communication with the IKP team. So even if they were actually asking for patents, all these things, we are very comfortable with the VIT team, and we are just like one team. So you can just put them, and they can also help from that side, and it always helps having extra players on your team.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Visu, for saying that. And members, the thing is, the last date is 16th November, August, and do not wait until then. So start preparing your proposal right away, and because there is a need for a letter of intent and which we can provide, and where you will have to choose a partner, you can always choose IKP. So these are all things that you must know even before you start your proposal writing, and it just works. So start doing it right away, and you might get a lot more queries as you go start doing your application. You can reach out to us as well. Anmol and Dr. Sridhar, Dr. Visu, Apurva, and all of us are around, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So if there aren't any questions, then there is no point holding, but I would still urge you all to think through if there is something in your mind, be open, just post the query. You can ask in the forum right away, or you could always write back to us. Okay, anyways, Apurva, then I think we can call this session off because there aren't any questions.
Sure,
Yeah. So you have left your contacts there, and thank you so much, and thank you so
Sure.
much, IKP team, for whatever you have
Wish you all
been
the
doing.
best.
And
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, and Anmol for joining in the session.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.